hadn't seen it. What do you think? Okay, I'm really excited to talk about this. So let's bring up the director of Rambling Rose, Lost in Yonkers, Valley Girl, and Real Genius, Martha Coolidge. And the star, one of the stars, Napoleon Dynamite, Running Scared, Taken 1, 2, and 3, and Laszlo, Holyfield himself, the man in the closet, Jon Gries. We have a USC professor. This is a fun surprise. Did Martin come back?
I don't know. Where is he?
Martin, are you here?
Hey!
You want to come on? This is Dr. Martin Gunderson, who is the technical advisor to help with all the lasers. We'll ask you a couple questions as well. So I have to say, we've done a bunch of these screenings. We started about a year and a half ago.
Oh, that's great.
I've never seen it this packed. And I also never had more questions and requests about a screening than this one. So congratulations.
Well,
it was really fun to see you with that crowd.
It was really fun for me to see it with a crowd.
Here you go, Martha.
Oh, I have a thing. Oh. Is this on?
Yeah, it's on. The one thing
Hello.
that said if you hold by the bottom, it'll cut out. So,
Yeah, okay. Anyway, it was really fun to see it with a crowd again, because alone in a room on video. And for years, the DVD was a pan and scan. It almost killed me.
This looked great, didn't it?
This looked really good. This is an online copy. I was looking forward to the really good one, but this was pretty good.
Amazing.
So apparently Sony has a better version that will hopefully come out on Blu-ray at some point. So let's get into the movie. So first and foremost, let's talk about the popcorn. I love that scene. I love the idea of that scene. And what I think is so amazing, because we're so used to today that would be digital effects and you wouldn't have that.
Oh yeah.
But you actually popped popcorn for 3 months. Is that true? At
Yes.
Sony,
Yes.
And you still didn't have enough popcorn to fill the house.
Well, no. Here's what we did. We purchased I forget if it was 100 tons, truckloads, 40 truckloads. We purchased about 100 tons of popcorn for the exterior house that exploded, and that stuff had to be natural, real popcorn. So we got that, and we also researched popcorn and found that what's his name,
Orville Redenbacher.
Orville Redenbacher's popcorn pops bigger. So anyway, it's about 2 pounds per cubic foot, and the special effects guy was this very dry guy with a very funny sense of humor. Really dry though, and he just knew everything about popcorn, and it took about a year, but here was the thing, I didn't know how to end the movie. It was really a revenge picture, but
Yeah.
I wanted to be smarter than that. It is a revenge picture, but I wanted to be smarter. So I sort of ran a contest, who can think of the best ending? And I had a friend, Ron Cobb, who's a very well-known political cartoonist who designed Conan and was one of the designers of Alien, and who also did the car in Back to the Future and the creatures in the Star Wars bar.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good. So he came up with the popcorn idea. And he came to me, he says, well, it's probably going to be $1 million gag, or $2 million gag, but it was so worth it.
I heard that, I was reading today that they give you a break because of the movie industry and they buy so much popcorn, but it actually would have cost $1.8 million to get all that popcorn that you bought.
Probably. We had up this in the 40 tractor trailer trucks that were parked up the street because it was a vacuum mover inside the house.
Sucked it in.
And it would suck it in, then push it out. So we could run for 15 seconds. Then it would run out of popcorn in the vacuum machine. So you had to bring down the tractor trailers, reload them, and then start the house up. So we could do one sequence a day. Took a whole day to clean it up, go back, and the house would come apart, and then it would go back. They had to manually push it back.
They built the house on an I-beam. I
Yeah,
remember.
and it just came out, and the porch fell down, and house keeled over, and you blasted out the windows. So we could do one of those a day. Then we had to go do something else for a day, come back, and do it again, which we did, I think, 3 times. But what was funny was the popcorn had to be edible. And when we first started, we couldn't get enough purchased popcorn. It's too much on popcorn, I'm sorry. But we had to pop 40 tons or something ourselves. Well, so we bought 6 big popping, huge. They look just like popcorn poppers, but they're huge. And we put them in a warehouse, and that's when we found out that popcorn dust is not only flammable, but explosive. And we burned down that warehouse. So then...
I did not know that.
So then we moved the machines to Hollywood Center Studios, where we were outside. And it was January, December, January, February. So we spent 3 months popping that popcorn on the lot, smelling like popcorn, the whole thing. I didn't eat popcorn for a year because I love popcorn. I didn't want to ruin my appetite. And we'd pour this yellow flame retardant immediately on the popcorn, so it looked like we were making huge, giant batches of popcorn. And that was for the Easy Pop, this thing in the house, because it was underneath the set was a hydraulic lift that was filled with popcorn.
I love that you did it, and that's such a great idea because it's so fitting with the tone of the movie. And like, it's such a fun plant early on when he's like, what is that? It's popcorn, I hate popcorn. It's so random, and it's such a great way to end it. But as, like, I'm a screenwriter, and I'm imagining, I guess today you do it CG, but when, like, I can't believe anyone let you do that.
Well, we had to.
They're like, hey guys, can we come up with something else for the end?
No, they thought it was funny, but
That's
the
awesome.
thing was, at first we thought, well, maybe styrofoam. Styrofoam's too light. This was 2 pounds per cubic foot. You can't, nothing quite weighs like that. So you had to use real popcorn. And in the end, really, it was probably cheaper than lots of other things. And certainly at the time, we used very early digital effects with flying planes, and they're early and they were good, but they're a little, you can tell. But yeah, the popcorn wouldn't have worked.
As the last thing I'll say about it is I heard Mythbusters actually tested it out on their show and proved that would have happened. They said they wouldn't have collapsed the house, but if you had the laser, it would have created all the popcorn, which is kind of amazing.
Well, that's
cool.
Great.
I
like that.
All right, well, enough about the popcorn. I can keep talking about it, but all right, let's talk about how you guys all came onto the movie. So, Martha, I heard there was an early version of the script, and I heard you passed on this twice. And the Brian Grazer loved Valley Girl, and he really wanted you to do this movie.
Yes.
What was in the early script, and what made you pass on it?
The early script was funny, but I'd been offered, after Valley Girl, and before Valley Girl, I was offered teen comedies that were, the girls have no names, and they call them pigs, and they, have a lot of frat parties, and, it just was just a sort of Porky's, right? And that hadn't happened yet. But anyway, so I turned it down because it was a lot of penis jokes, so I kept some penis jokes. But
penis enlargement jokes.
Yeah.
The intelligent penis.
Yeah, but I just felt, and Brian came to me and said, I want to do a movie that makes smart people heroes. And I said, yeah, but Brian, if you're going to do that, they have to be smart. You can't just have them dumb as everybody else. So he came to me a third time after having a pass of smarter jokes done by Lowell Gantz and Babalu Mandel. They wrote
Parenthood / City Slickers.
So I thought they were, and so I came in, and they didn't want to actually spend time rewriting the movie. So then Brian, who is an expert on comedy, brought in Peter Torkvey, and Peter and I just clicked. And he got it, I got it, and we wrote. He wrote all the dialogue and rewrote, and I brought in a lot of the action, and I actually wrote with him. So we spent months working on the script while we prepped. So the next thing was to come up with the popcorn idea, and we researched the laser weapon because I really wanted it to be about something, and found out that things like this happen. I had a guy who'd worked for the CIA experimenting. He was actually the guy who whispers to goats. He was actually the ESP guy with the Navy, because he was trying to fight Russians with submarines.
It's a thing.
Huh?
I was telling you if you don't know what this is, it's actually
Yeah.
What is it called?
The CIA agents were trying to use, it was like ESP experiments,
ESP.
trying to communicate with goats.
With goats.
Well, no, I mean, he didn't do that, but he was looking for Russians in submarines.
Okay.
And Russian submarines, I guess. But he found and told me that it was amazing, everybody can do it. And so they did these experiments at Duke and in the Defense Department, but he told me how black money works. And so we did that whole plot, and then that led me to the space-based laser weapons, and that led me to Martin, who was working in that program then, if you can talk about it.
So Martin, what you're a, and then John, we will get to you too.
Oh no, I'm having a great time.
Okay. So Martin, you're a professor here at USC. What do you teach?
Just it's on.
Yeah, it's just on.
Currently quantum mechanics and high voltage technology and a couple of project things.
Wow.
But we have a research group that does. At the time I was hired as a laser guy in 1980, and I was doing laser-related research, and the MacGuffins that we developed were based on some ideas that we had at the time, which most of them didn't work, but there was some real physics behind it, and I'll give Val credit for learning his lines that are perfect for the MacGuffins.
Well,
he really did.
And actually, Martin was actually the teacher in the movie.
Yeah, he's the guy.
With all the boom boxes and stuff. That's his cameo.
The other thing, yes, it was. And the other thing that was fun is we researched Caltech extensively, MIT, USC. We researched all these school pranks that were smart. The car is real. That's been done everywhere.
Let's stop and talk about that so we can have John talk, because I read that today, John. So that some guy actually did this. Like a bunch of Caltech students. You want to tell the story?
I don't know the story.
All right.
No, it's yeah. You could.
I was to say that it's based on truth. There's a couple of the Caltech kids put in like 1 million sort of entries for the McDonald's sort of prize. And McDonald's said that they wouldn't let them say McDonald's.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about the car.
Oh no,
I knew about
yes,
the car, but I didn't know specifically about the car.
So that's actually true, and then they put that in the movie for your
Yeah, and
character,
the
which is very
car
fun.
was done in quite a few universities. The best one probably was some kind of truck. That was, my memory could be wrong, but in Cambridge, and they disassembled a truck and then reassembled it on top of like the London clock tower, something. I mean, it was like in England. But another one was the car in the room, and another one, oh, I loved this one. Some guy went out and he was gone for a while, and they sealed up the room, changed all the numbers of the whole dorm, so that when the guy came back, his room no longer existed. And the ice is based on both waterfalls and water and ice. So, because they would do these pranks, I went to Caltech for one of those weekends, and there were waterfalls coming out of the 3rd floor and all kinds of crazy stuff. And one time somebody challenged me on why there's so few women in it, and I feel that although I want to represent the world as I would like it to be, I also felt responsible in showing what it really was sad that there weren't more women in the sciences. In fact, I mean, if you're a woman in the sciences, you would get a lot of attention, and it was also a good excuse for the beauty school.
I love this movie, but I dated a girl who went to MIT a few years ago, and I went to a party, and this is so accurate. Like this is the way they are, and you'd be talking to these people, and her and I would talk about it, is that they're so brilliant. It's like your character, but they have no social skills, and like you'd be having a conversation with this guy, and he'd be genius, and then he would just wander off, like midway through the sentence, and yeah, you watch the movie, and you're like, okay, that's pretty accurate.
Well, Martin, you can talk about that.
A member of my group here can verify. I was going to tell a Ron Cobb story that had to do with the dorm and the hallway of the dorm, which is decorated with all kinds of stuff. Oh, yeah. That was a reproduction of the hallway in Dabney Hall at Caltech. Made approximately 1 foot wider to accommodate cameras. But it's a Ron Cobb story. We were walking down that hallway one evening, and looking at the decorations, and Ron stopped me. And that one of the things was the cover of the Jefferson Airplane first album, and he said, "Oh, I did that." The original and had been lifted and lifted and put it to this.
Well, the graffiti is incredible. It's real science graffiti, and so we copied it. Then we photographed the whole thing and had the scenic painters paint in the the graffiti. But then at night, because Phil Abramson was the decorator, he's dead now, but he was brilliant and funny. And so what he did, because it was a union show, so at night, he brought in a bunch of Caltech students, and they came in at night, and they just added more graffiti.
That's great. All right, well, so John, let's talk about how you became involved in this.
Oh.
So you've done a few movies at this point. Did you get the script? Did your agent send this to you? Did you audition for this? Like how?
Yeah, many times, didn't I?
Did you?
I don't remember how.
I think like 5 times.
No.
Yeah. I think Randy Dreyfuss was really high in the running for a while, and then Mike was in the running. I kind of and Swerdlow. I kept having to come back
the
again.
Swerdlow. So we ended up hiring everybody.
Yeah, you hire them all, but
Yeah.
they just in different capacities.
But
Dean Devlin is in this movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Do you guys know
Dean Devlin
Yeah.
is in the movie. We have some amazing people in this movie.
He's one of the writer and producers of Independence Day and like the old Godzilla remake and Stargate.
He's like
he was an
a-
actor at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the guys in the film. So
Well-
let's talk about.
Well,
this.
I want to
Oh,
tell
sorry,
you,
go
I
ahead.
met
Yeah,
the real guy. This is
Yeah.
important.
There's a real guy in the closet.
Hopsfield.
Oh yeah, Hopsfield. I met him. He was. It was based on a myth that came up in Caltech, because this was when you used to have to do PE, and typical, he didn't like PE, so he never did PE. So he'd disappear into the tunnels, and he set up an office down there and stuff, so nobody could find him. And that was kind of the story with him. And when I met him, he was making a fortune, and he'd sold out to industry, but he took the bus. And we asked him why he took the bus, and he said, "Well, I've noticed that when I look at the clock, and then a second later I'll look at the clock, and it's 15 minutes later, and I don't know why, so I figure I better not drive." So we figured he probably had petit mal epilepsy, but
Yeah, sure.
his whole family was just like him, which is really horrifying, because he had a sister and a brother and the mother and the father, and they'd sit around the dinner table somewhere in the Midwest and talk about math, because that was the family. It was math, and he had never cut his fingernails, so when he came in, his nails were like this, sort of like a Thai dancer, and his hair was all long, and it was not the best, well cared for guy. And Brian is a little bit germophobic. So he came in and he put his and Brian shook his hand, but after
Grazer.
the producer, after he left, Brian ran to the bathroom and washed his hands. It was so funny. So in a sense, it was because he really captured the kind of dry, Jonathan did the dry kind of humor, sensitive. I really love how you play the part, so I can't even imagine.
Well, let's
anybody
talk
else.
about that, because I always love this. I love this character, and I loved your performance. And watching it tonight in the big screen, like there's just sweetness.
They
Yeah,
actually sent me the script to read for Ken.
I was going to ask you, because
Yeah.
I know a lot of times with these things, like you're all the
Because
same
I
age.
was
It's
always
like
playing bad guys.
yeah.
And
It's too sweet.
I remember saying to my agent, Steve Donville at the time, who was just a brand new agent, and I called him and I said, I don't want to go and read for this. I want to read for Hopsfield, because that's the way
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
written.
Hopsfield, yeah.
And you couldn't get clearance on his
Yeah.
name. I'm the one who came up with Hollyfield, because he had just won the gold medal in the
Oh, yeah,
Olympics.
yeah.
Yes.
And they couldn't use his name, so they changed it to Hollyfeld.
Nice.
Because for a minute there it was Davendorf, and I was like, no, that's too clunky and heavy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not the right name. Hopsfield was really the perfect name. But I remember calling him, and he screamed at me. He's like, "You don't get it! The guy's 40 years old. You can't play 40." And I was like, "I don't care. I want to go and read for it." And that was it.
No,
And
you didn't have to play him as 40.
no,
Yeah.
it worked. But I just went in and read, and then I got a call back, and then I read again, and I got a call back, and it just took like 3 or 4 times, and I just thought to myself, I felt like when I saw Randy Dreyfuss, and he and I had been in the same class, and he's such a good actor. He was the guy who freaked out.
Yes.
That's Richard Dreyfuss's nephew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he couldn't be Holyfield.
No, well,
Yeah.
I know him, and I know he probably played him really intellectually, because he's really intellectual.
Because I think he could be a really sort of different, like, creepy character, and I think you were so likable, and there's such a
I
sweetness
just wanted to
there.
play him
Yeah.
damaged a little bit.
Yeah.
I just wanted to play him like that. It's too much. It's
I love
just
the facial
too
tics, which I
much.
noticed on the big screen tonight. Like you kind of
What facial tics?
the thing that's not weird.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, that's it.
Yeah. No, it was really good. You know what I realized watching this too, because let's talk about the closet. You never actually we never see you on it. Did you get to ride the thing?
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
It was fun. I think I have pictures somewhere of me riding that
Oh,
thing.
cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Because that's another amazing thing that you had to do practically that probably nowadays you wouldn't. But like you built all that. Like how was that? Yeah.
Oh no, we built it all. Yeah, it was fun. And the rat was like a Hollywood rat.
Yeah. Hollywood train rat.
He was so fat, and he came with
And he
little
was like
dark
spray
glasses.
painted, wasn't he? He was really a white rat. I think they colored him.
I don't know, man. He was such
Wait,
a
did you
Hollywood
spray
rat.
paint a rat, Martha?
Well,
No.
they're like Tipson Street.
Someone else
you know.
did?
Yeah, no, he
Whatever
may
they
have
call
been
it.
that we wanted him. Maybe he was too pretty. I don't know. He really was, but he was fine. He did what he was supposed to do.
But when the funny thing is, when I saw that day, when I showed up at that day and I saw that machine, that was like for me, getting this job was a big change in my life. This was, I was knocking around and doing stuff, but I was also working construction, and I was just doing whatever I could to get by. And then when this job hit, it was like, okay, it's your life, your trajectory has changed, and now you're going to be doing this. And seeing that set was like the moment where I went, this is totally legit. That was it for me. That and the graffiti. When I saw the graffiti in the hallways, I was blown away by that.
Well, and just to go back, that it was very, very important to me that the meth was real, and that I didn't want a real laser that would really do that, but I wanted one that was theoretically possible. And I said to Martin, you didn't want to either do one that was totally real, but I said, if you could do something that's completely believable, and then we sent all the guys down to work in his lab, and that's why you can see it's all second nature. The minute they touch it, their hand goes back.
Yeah.
So they're only using one hand on the lasers, and he gave them all the meaning behind the math so that they knew what they were saying was real. Because I really don't believe in movies with a lot of gobbledygook that isn't real.
Well, I think
doesn't help.
watching it again, I think that's what makes the movie work so well is that it's such a funny movie and there's so many broad characters, but I think the reality of all that stuff grounds it really well. And I think if you hadn't done that, then it becomes Revenge of the Nerds, which is great too. But
it's
you
different
buy
kind of
that these are real guys, and you buy that they really are geniuses, and that they built this thing, and that this is possible. So Martin, did you read the script? Like how much of that, and say like, hey guys, I think this would actually be a good sort of MacGuffin,
Bits and pieces. I did read it.
Will you help write it, rewrite it?
I worked with Peter Torquay also. I put a few jokes in, and
Do you remember which jokes you put in?
I remember a couple at screenings that they took out afterwards because people were laughing at Peter Torquay's jokes, but not at mine.
Oh.
And then I had one in there that Val wouldn't use. There's a formula that connects the speed of light with the wavelength and the frequency using nu for frequency, and it's a nerd joke. You say, what's nu? And C over lambda. Okay. Val said it was...
That would have gone right over my head.
Val said it was too nerdy. Probably was right.
Let's talk about Val, who did really want to be here tonight, and actually William Atherton. I don't know if I told you guys, also
He
really
wanted
wanted to be here. Who's amazing, and I want to talk about him too.
So good.
But he Bill got another job and the schedule changed, so unfortunately
Gosh.
he couldn't be here. Yes, so it's good he's
Good
working.
he's working.
But let's talk about Val, because it's such an amazing comic performance and such an amazing like leading man performance. This
For a
was the second movie.
22-year-old guy.
Yeah, and like I heard it came down to it was Jane Jenkins and Jana Hershenson who were amazing, were the cast managers. I heard it came down to Val and John Cusack. Is
Yep.
that true?
Yes, it was Val and John Cusack. We saw lots of people, and Val had self-taped, something people do now.
Had you seen Top Secret? Had it come out yet, or?
No,
It came out while we were shooting.
No,
Okay.
no, yeah, I hadn't seen it at
Wow.
all.
So that's amazing. I mean, yeah. Anyway, sorry, go on.
So he self-taped.
Okay.
And then we went to see him, or we brought him in. Eventually we brought him in and saw John and Val back to back, and they were really different. I mean, John, I wanted somebody who was really a leading man, who was manly in a way, and he's so charismatic.
Yeah.
And whereas at that time, John, it was really hard to believe he was a grown-up.
Yeah.
He really played young for a long time, even though he's a brilliant actor. I mean, they're both great actors. So in the end, it really came out to Val, and Val was scared. I mean, this was a big part.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of nerves, and we worked through that, and we had a lot of rehearsals, and anyway, he just brought a lot of energy to it. But there are funny things. He's also sort of a rebel, and we gave him skating lessons, and he never showed up. So he ended up with slippers on instead of ice skates and stuff like that. But he just brought his wacky and the stuff. He does stuff
Yeah.
like this
Rolling
all the time.
points,
Yeah. And John, because you guys stayed good friends, right?
Yeah.
Did you meet on this movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, it's about self-taping. He was always the guy, like he would tell me about this, that he would self-tape, and so we ended up doing 3 things together, self-tape. We did one for Stanley Kubrick in Full Metal Jacket, and then we did one for Martin Scorsese in Wise Guys, but then they changed the name to Goodfellas.
Yeah.
And then I directed him for The Doors in the self-tape, which he ended up getting that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we did it together. It was pretty amazing. And we just, we shot the one for Martin Scorsese on film in New York City and cut it on film and sound striped it and sent it to him on film. So it's like, you got to watch this on film.
Wow.
Too bad,
That's pretty great.
But a funny anecdote was that he called me once, 4 in the morning, and he's like, "Hey, John," because out of the blue, this is how he is, What, who is this? It's Val. What are you calling me, sir? He goes, "I'm in England." I said, "Oh, cool." He goes, "It's here. The tape is here." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "I'm sitting here in Kubrick's office, and our tape is sitting on the shelf." I thought that was really funny. Kubrick steps out of the office, and he picks up the phone and calls me. Funny.
That's amazing.
It was. He was really unique. He had that energy and that charisma, and he was just sort of the obvious guy, and there really wasn't anybody quite like him. It was a very unique part.
It's such a great character, and same thing. You have to buy that he's that intelligent, but he's also amazingly good looking and funny and leading man.
The really hard part was the boy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you're telling me some of this before. So
Well, the
how did you
boy
find Gabe Jarrett?
Oh my God, it was so hard. We put out calls. We saw kids. We read tons of kids, and we said, "Well, there's something wrong here." So we went and did a thing where we went out, and so I said, "Well, why don't we go see if there really is a genius who acts?" Well, we found one. 14 years old. He'd taken a year off college to act in a Broadway play. And he came out twice, and we tested him, and I had Joanne work with him and teach him how to act. And he absorbed things. I mean, you never had to repeat anything. This guy got it immediately. And he was at that point 14. He was going to graduate it that year, and then he was going to go to law school, which he ended up graduating from law school at 16. And then he sued the Florida bar because he was too young, and he thought that was unfair. So, but at any rate, So his IQ was some astronomical 196 or something crazy, and he'd speak all over the world on behalf of genius children. So what was great was to experience him because he really wasn't quite cute enough, and he was just a little bit not quite enough affect. You know, he had that brainy, a little bit. He isn't, because he was very emotional, but he, you know, that little bit intellectual Aspergery kind of a affect. So, and he was great, and he learned how to act, and he could react emotionally and all, picked it up right away. But so anyway, I cast. Then Gabe came in late. I mean, we were still looking, and when Gabe came in, he sort of looked like him. So he was much more of an actor, and he really wanted to be an actor. But he wasn't sort of what you would say saddled by the brains, but he could do it. You know, he could deal with the boy as a boy, because what I found with the really brilliant kid was he really was just a kid. It was amazing. Here's this kid going to college, and his mother had to take 4 years of her life to move from Florida to New York so she could be with him at NYU, and you know, because he needed. You know, I learned a lot about what it's like. I mean, he went there at like 12 or 11. And so he had to be chaperoned, and he couldn't live in the city by himself. And, you know, it was a big sacrifice for the family. And she had 4 children. His younger brother was Down syndrome. So it was there was, or maybe he was after the Down syndrome child. At any rate, they must have been scared to death. And very surprised.
I got a Val story.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So this was after the picture, and I had been working with Los Alamos on some stuff, but my stuff wasn't classified. It was pretty open. But Val contacted me, and he was shooting some stuff at Fuller Lodge at Los Alamos. And it was in the aftermath of Chernobyl, and he was trying to put together a picture.
A documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he really did have a serious side.
Oh, very serious.
John Connor was on it, the cameraman for
Yep.
Martha's picture, and it was very interesting. So I went out I was supposed to meet him outside of Santa Fe, and I drove out to this end of this street, and there was nothing, lights, nothing. This is hopeless.